evening. Welcome to Famous Brown. We will be starting certain documentaries in order to bring you information, unheard information that you have heard of hidden persons in the black community. And we're going to start this documentary off with one of the figures that I think that you will be very blessed with and homegrown. We're going to start with Carl Maxey Brashear. Y'all know who he was? Y'all know? Okay, let me give you two things. He was the first black U.S. Navy master diver. Y'all saw the movie Coon Jr. He served in that position for 10 years and eventually achieved the rank of Master Chief Boatswain's Mate. I'm going to put that to the side now because I don't need that no more, because we have with us here Mr. Philip Brashear. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Brashear, you said it correctly.
Because I'll mess it up. We're going to start this documentary because I want to see it, Mr. Brown, I want to see it through your eyes. And earlier we talked about, I'm going to lead up to your conversation, we talked about the impact of your father. And you said something that intrigued me, which was that he didn't bring it home. So from that note, can you let us know when y'all was born, what was going on, and then I'm intrigued by that environment, to where the impact that he had on the world, and as children, he shielded y'all from that.
I understand. Well, my name is Philip Brashear. I'm the third son of Carl Brashear and my mother, Janetta Brashear, who were both born and raised in Kentucky. My dad joined the Navy back in 1948 after President Harry Truman desegregated the Navy. I'm sorry, well, all the armed services. And like I said, I'm the third son. My parents had...
What's the other two sons' name?
There's three of us all together. My oldest brother, Shazanta, his nickname was Shane, died in 1996. My next oldest brother, Dwayne, is an entrepreneur in the Newark, New Jersey area. And my little brother, Patrick, who's 2 years under me, lives in the Hampton Roads area. But we were all born in different places. My oldest brother was born in New York when my dad was stationed in New York. My next oldest brother, Dwayne, was born in Rhode Island. I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, where my father was stationed there. In fact, I'm exactly 11 months younger than the former President Barack Obama, who was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. President Barack Obama was born August 4th, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii, in the civilian hospital. I was born July 3rd, 1962 at Tripler Army General Hospital, which is in Honolulu, Hawaii. So me and former President Barack Obama are exactly 11 months apart in age. And my younger brother, Patrick, was born in Washington, D.C.
And the others?
That's it, of the three of us.
All the same. Okay, so then how was life coming up?
Well, life coming up was pretty normal.
What do you call normal in a environment that was bigoted and racial?
Well, I didn't know that. Being part of a military family, there wasn't a lot of bigotry and racism that I was exposed to growing up. My parents lived on different military bases, and by the time I came around, we were established in the Portsmouth area in a section called Cavalier Manor. And again, I wasn't exposed to a lot of racism or bigotry because I was part of a military family, and the military didn't expose a lot of that, or I was never exposed to it growing up as a young kid. So I didn't know that all that was going on. So I really can't speak to that because I wasn't exposed to it.
How in the world are you raised on a military base with your father, that what he's doing? See, I'm intrigued. And it didn't hit you, come to you. It doesn't manifest in you the hatred, the anger, or was it? That's intriguing to me.
Well, you got to figure in the military family, which is a microcosm of the main society, but in the military family that I was exposed to, black and white people got along. My dad would bring us out to company or outings that the military would have. We would have drinks, soda pop, hot dogs, hamburgers. My father would be playing softball, and the black and white people got along. There was no racism or bigotry I was exposed to as a young child. It just didn't exist because of what the military formulated as a family unit during that time that I was coming up.
And when you got out of the military unit situation, were you exposed it, found an overview of the world, and then what was your opinion then?
As I started to grow older, I would see and I would be exposed to things through the media. I was 6 years old in 1968 when Martin Luther King was shot. From the media, I was exposed to racism and bigotry and how the rest of the world was acting. But in my own little section of the world, you know, being with my mother and my father and going to military bases and going to school, it really wasn't present during the time that I was coming up. I just was exposed to it through the media.
So you're hitting on a point that I think we as Americans need to understand, that we can be in this world but also have our own gerrymandered area. In other words, the world that you're in is the world that you know.
Exactly.
And everything else, you know, so that leads me to the point in reference to, we can see somebody and think that they're racist, but we don't know that they're not even aware of it because of the environment that they were in. Is that feasible to say?
Well,
Because you're saying, you know, you saw it, but it didn't impact you.
I saw it through the media, but in my surroundings, in my environment, I wasn't exposed to it. I feel fortunate I wasn't exposed to it. It was never brought into my immediate circle of me going to school and interacting with the folks that my dad exposed me to, my mom exposed me to. I would hear them talk about it, but it was because of what the media was bringing from the outside into my little world that I was exposed to racism and bigotry. But as a young child, I was never faced with it.
When did you have to face it?
Well, as I started to get older and during my high school years, I guess I was starting to mature and I could understand or maybe see better what might have been going on around me before. I just wasn't educated to it. As I got into high school, though, I did start to notice attitudes of some of the kids that I was associated with or in circles with, and I was exposed to racism then. I could see and I could hear some of the things that were going on as I started to mature in the high school years, where, hey, racism, this is a real thing.
And how did that impact your direction in your career then?
Well, it never really impacted me because my father and my mother brought me up with the understanding that, Philip, you've got a sharp mind. We raise you kids to go out and do whatever dreams that you have and achieve. So I was never held back by anything. So even though there were some issues that I started to get exposed to in high school, it didn't stop me from being what I wanted to be. It wasn't a hindrance.
So from what we saw in the movie and the stuff that your father went through, and you being a child, I'm hearing you saying he shielded you from that.
My father never brought any of that home. He never had discussions with what he was going through on the job or what he had gone through to get to the point where he was. A lot of that happened before me and my little brother came along, because there is a big gap between me and my next older brother. They might have been exposed to some of that, and I'm sure they were, but as far as me and my little brother were concerned, we were shielded and separated from what my father had gone through. So we never even knew what ever happened during my dad's earlier years.
And so you pursued a career?
After high school, I went to ODU for a year, and after kind of flunking out, I didn't really do what I was supposed to do. So I admit that to myself. I didn't do my schooling the way I should have. I joined the Navy Reserve in 1981.
But as your father and my father said, you had the option to do what you wanted to do. But your choice.
My choice. My choice.
I just wanted to throw that up there. My son did the same thing.
My choice was to mess up and not complete my college education at that time. Right. So a year later, in 1981, I joined the Navy Reserve because I wanted to do something to improve my status. So I joined the Navy Reserve in 1981. I became a helicopter crew member. I would ride on Navy helicopters, perform my duties. And one day I looked at those Navy helicopter pilots and thought to myself, hey, those guys can't be that much smarter than me. I can fly these. But because I didn't have my college education, I couldn't apply for Navy flight school. So in 1989, I transferred from the Navy Reserve to the Army National Guard. I had an interview with the colonel who was in charge of the Army National Guard right here in Richmond. And he said, Philip, if you join the Virginia Army National Guard, I will send you to flight school. I joined the Army National Guard here in the Richmond area. A year later, that colonel sent me to flight school, and I became a helicopter pilot with the Virginia Army National Guard for 19 years.
And so on the way, did you have a family?
I did have a family. I got married the first time back in 19. I got married the first time in 1987, and that was a short-lived marriage. I really blame that on myself. I was young and immature, and I didn't go through the marriage the way I should have. But from that marriage, I have two beautiful daughters. One, Melanie, lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and my other daughter, Megan, lives in Jacksonville, Florida.
What their pursuit as far as their age and their career-wise? Did they know the impact of your father? Your grandfather?
My daughters are definitely aware of what my father went through. In fact, they were there when the movie came out, and they've been in 2000. Once the movie came out, of what my father had to go through and who he was and how he impacted the world.
So we need to interview them. Because just in my case too, my children gets the information directly from my dad. And so I'm feeling, that's why I'm joking. But we would like to interview y'all too. Because I think that we have to see our walk and our journey and the impact. And I mean, I'm listening to someone that's an African American that was living on the with the you know what I'm saying, the government funds, the services and whatnot. And in that particular arena, in that world, it was colorblind.
It was.
And it was a family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you built from, and then it's like, well, how come that family there, and then we get out here and whatnot, and I'm impressed with your the tone and the way you present yourself in reference to you don't seem to be a stressful person.
No.
You seem to be a laid back person that you receive it, analyze it, say what you got to say, and then move on, and that takes time to grow and to mature to that particular, from what you were saying when you was younger and doing your thing and now and whatnot, and the impact of your kids. You were speaking in reference to your father in earlier, I think, Kentucky.
Yes.
That they're looking to address this hidden figure in a way that we will be honored.
Yes. Here recently, as Richmond has its own problems and issues with the statues around Monument Avenue and all of that, the same time that the Jefferson Davis statue was going through its little turmoil here in Richmond, State Senator Chris McDaniel, who is part of the state Kentucky General Assembly, announced a pre-filing announcement that when the Jefferson Davis statue comes down in the State Farm Rotunda building in Frankfort, Kentucky, and replace that with a Carl Brashear statue in its place. So the same time Richmond was going through this surprise announcement kind of hit me, because I had a talk with the senator the same day that we were having our issues with Jefferson Davis statue here in Richmond. And he said, Brashear, we're going to take that statue down in the State Rotunda building in Kentucky. We're going to put one up in front of your representing your father. So I thought that was pretty ironic.
And it's a blessing, and it's necessary. And he is more than qualified to have that happen. I would engage the question in reference to that statue being put there. Do you feel that that's all what he was about in reference to a statue for that, or do you feel that his role in society of being the first made an impact in changing racial and bigotry as well? And if so, do you think the statue and all the statue, is that enough
Let me
to
just say,
satisfy the black anger?
I don't know if it's going to satisfy the black anger. That's another subject for another time. I just think, one, personally, the statues that are up, that when I came to the Richmond area, the statues that are up didn't mean anything to me, whether they were Confederate or Union, because I paid no attention to that. I knew they were there, but an inanimate object has no effect on me. I'm living in the real world. I could care less if the statue was there or not. Having a statue of my father shows respect, of course, for my father, but before my father even got thought of for a statue, he had overcome the 5 hurdles in this world that still affect every country today. My father won the battle over racism, over poverty, over illiteracy, over physical disability, and before my father retired, he had to subject himself to the Navy Alcohol Abuse School in order to retire with honors, because he did have an alcohol problem. See, we're talking about real issues, statues and symbols. That affects the mind, and by the heart and the mind, people work off of that. My father dealt with real issues, inanimate objects, things that are out there in the world, I don't think have any bearing on how people feel, because they're just inanimate objects. I could care less about the statue. I could care less really if it's the statue of my dad. I know his legacy is going to continue because of what he did physically in this world.
So
His physical presence in this world is what's going to change this world, and what has changed this world.
So as Dr. King says, the character.
The character. That's what changes the world. Because think about it. Everything that my dad's been given, all the honors that he's been blessed with, the ship that's named after him, the VA Center in Kentucky, the movie, the Swiss watches that a Swiss company made in honor of my father, all those are just objects. What's going to carry on forever is his character and his impact with his personality on this world. The way he looked at obstacles and overcame them. That's what carries through. That's going to be his legacy for millennia, is what he did. Not the things that we prop up to honor him with, because those things will fade after time. But his character will always live on because of his strength, his ability to, through his example, to overcome obstacles. Things that we need to still work on today. We need to overcome our obstacles. His character is what's going to carry through the millennia. The things that people are blessing him with now are just tangible objects that with time will fade. But his name will carry on because of the life he lived. And that's what we need to strive towards. Living a better life and not putting so much emphasis on what you can feel and touch. But live by the strength of your character. Dr. Martin Luther King died in 1968. We have all kinds of monuments raised against him and for him. And of course, he deserves those honors. But after a while, those tangible things will fade away. The strength of Dr. Martin Luther King is the strength of his character that will live throughout time. The fact that he had a nonviolent movement that changed the world, that's what we're going to remember Dr. Martin Luther King for.
This is the first series of this documentary, and I want to ask you to close the particular series in this. If your father had an opportunity to talk to the world today and what's going on, what do you think he would say to make us move forward as the Navy or the armed services in your life was a family? We, the people, what would you think he would say?
My father lived by a famous saying. In fact, I trademarked that saying. My father was a big boxing fan, and he would see where in the boxing ring one man would get knocked down. That man that gets knocked down has to have the strength, the fortitude, the intestinal courage to get back up and face his opponent. Because that's what boxing all about. It's one-on-one. There is no running to the team to help. My dad's famous saying is, it's not a sin to get knocked down, it's a sin to stay down. Yes, we as a people, we came to this country in ways that weren't advantageous to our growth, but we're here now. We have to make amends and do for ourselves and show that we can overcome whatever barriers are put up against us legally. Now there's some things going on that may not be within the law, but legally we can overcome those barriers, but we have to stay up on the fight. We have to use the rights given to us to vote, to change the world the way we want it to be through nonviolent efforts. So my father would just say, hey, keep the fight, use the rights given to you, spend your money where you want to spend it, because as a people we're powerful with our dollars. But if we just learn to work together, there's nothing we can't change about this world to make it the way that we need to be, which is everybody's equal. But we got to fight for that. You got to be willing to put your life on the line for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.